Hi, my name is Thomas Webb. This is my response to week three's short video and readings on trauma-informed practices and ACEs. The first question asks, what role do educators, schools, families, and communities play in preventing ACEs? The short video really focused more on the community aspect. I think we all know the famous saying of it takes a village, and that video was kind of based on that. But as far as specifically from the educator's role, I think one of the biggest takeaways I got was the in preventing adverse childhood experiences is the school plays a big role in that, obviously. Maybe not so much on the prevention, but as far as the identification and the day-to-day management and kind of working through issues that arise because of the ACEs that the kids have experienced. I think in our reading this week, it said something about if a kid has four, that the likelihood that they're going to have adverse behaviors because of it is very, very high. So some ways that I wrote down for roles that we can play in the building is building those relationships so that you have a certain amount of trust in your classroom. I think for most teachers, especially in the SPED world, that I haven't met too many that didn't come very naturally to, and certainly that it's one of the more enjoyable parts of what we do. So, building those relationships and then fostering a classroom that feels safe, that's enjoyable, that kids look forward to coming to, those all play a big role. I think they play a role in general education as well, as kind of evidenced by our readings this week. But in the special ed world, I think because of the high incidence of ACEs that we deal with, or our kids deal with, and then we have to help them manage, it's even more impactful. And then on the school level, training would be probably a really good idea. I'm a former police officer, so being able to work your way through an incident without escalating it and all of that, I think that's something that teachers deserve as part of our kind of training package. It's not something that comes natural, especially when you're dealing with kids that are coming from a lot of trauma. The reaction is everything, right? And I think we learned that in the readings as well as a short video. That de-escalation and focusing on the why, or the what is this kid reacting to? What is the, I hate this word, but what is the trigger that is creating this reaction in the student? Just for instance, I'm a large dude with a big voice and a big personality, I'm 6'5", 240 pounds, so I have to be really cognizant of my body language. I have to be really cognizant of how close I'm standing, sit and get at their level as often as possible. All those little techniques that we pick up in our toolbox as we go through the education part, but also just the day-to-day, reflection on how things went. And I think obviously it's a huge part of what we deal with. So families, obviously this is where a lot of the ACE behaviors, responses initiate. Obviously it would be great if we all came from perfect families without trauma and everything, but that's just not the world we live in. But supporting the parent, I think through SPED and my experience over the last 2 years as a high school SPED teacher, a lot of communication with the parents is is very critical. I spend a lot more time as a SPED teacher doing that than I did as a general ed English teacher. And I don't know if that's the best thing either, but I think maybe as teachers across the board, that communication can be a lot better, in both directions. And then communities, the video talked about like being I think he was a big brother or something. Any sort of support that we can give kids through programs, through I personally coach, being a mentor, any impact that we can have on our youth is of utmost importance. So all four parts of that: educators, schools, families, and communities have to come together and support our young ones. Which prevention or resilience building strategy from the video stood out to you the most? Yeah, again, kind of going back to building those strong supportive relationships and classrooms with the students. I found myself throughout the reading this week reflecting on, where there's some places that I could get better, what am I doing well, just kind of reflecting on it like we always do, looking for areas that we could better serve our kids. Yeah, and then I wrote down, this week's reading talked about the research that consistently shows that one caring and trusted adult in a kid's life can have all the impact in the world. And I think that's kind of why most people that I know got into education is somewhere along the way they were impacted in a way that was profound enough that, hey, I want to have next generation. And to me, that's the bread and butter, the potatoes and gravy of what we do. Is you got to be able to realize that your interactions with your students could be the most positive thing that they get for that day. I know a lot of time and money and resources is put into the fact that we have kids that have what do they call it? Food instability, I believe, or insecurity. But there's also a really big part of our student body that has a love or caring insecurity as well. And, being able to feed that part of their existence, I think is super important and the most rewarding thing that we do. But that whole section, the video didn't really dive into that a whole lot, but the readings this week, that really spoke to me as an educator. So question 3, I'm probably getting way over time here, but how can trauma-informed teaching practices help reduce re-traumatization and promote emotional safety in the classroom? I think the biggest thing is it just gives us an opportunity to recognize, hold on, I gotta get down to my notes here, recognize the behavior that we might see from one of these kids is a reflection of what they're going through at any time during the day. And as you guys all know, that's an ever-moving target to try to recognize in any one student from hour to hour, day to day, week to week. But I think somebody else's video that I watched, and I'm sorry I didn't write down the name, but she said something to the effect that it isn't asking the question that's what's wrong with the student as much as it is what does the student need right now, and kind of reframing it in your mind so that you don't become defensive, or especially going on the offensive, and just trying to get them to recognize that they're having some sort of a reaction to something, and trying to help them identify that and put it away, but identify it and be able to set it aside for the time being so that, they can maintain and not stay inside of the growth mindset or whatever you're trying to accomplish in the classroom that day. But yeah, I think the biggest thing that I've done that's impacted this particular topic is if I do a really good job at digging into who the kid is and who that kid is today, and really stay informed about what they have going on in their life, not so much on a like deeply personal level, but like what's going on with you today, and where are your emotions at today. I feel like I'm much more effective day to day in kind of helping them manage, whatever it is that they're going through, from having a fight with one of their buddies, or they didn't sleep well last night, or there's a million different things that they're going through, as you guys know, and just being tuned into the kid and knowing the kid well enough to identify like, ooh, something, even just like subtle little difference in the way that they're acting can really tell you a lot about the kids at that particular day, and that emotion that they're going through. Building trust, yes. Encouraging positive relationships, yeah. I think I got everything on that. Then number 4, student behavior and considering the experiences that may be influencing that behavior, I think is the thing that I took away from not just our readings and that short video, but also watching a couple of your guys' videos too. Really, I think just trying to come up with more ideas to make my classroom feel as safe as it needs to, as stable and predictable and fun. I enjoy doing a lot of different things with them that kind of keep them on their toes, where it's not always expected, because I think they can get into a routine that becomes a little too boring. But also, like, there are certain touchstones throughout the day that no matter what, they know that we're going to get to those points. And I think stretching their abilities in that regard too, of being able to I don't know, for instance, like introducing some new game that we're going to play with. I teach mostly English to my 4 different SPED classes, and then a job readiness and a couple other duties throughout the day. But I think, just coming up with ways to make it interesting while also really working on those core, very base skills, and then building upon those to where we get into a little bit more deep level English skills. I think by the end of the year is, that's kind of the goal. Yeah, I think it just, the overall reading, I really enjoyed it. And the video was just just a good reminder of what we do has a massive impact on the day-to-day mental health and stability for a kid who really needs somebody in his life or her life to play that role. So it was good reading, interesting. I think that's about it. All right, thanks.